What's up everyone, welcome back to Just Finished Coding. This is part 6 of our full Pygame course on Python, so let's get coding.
Just finished coding.
Now quick interjection here, if you've not watched parts 1 to 5, please watch them before you come here because we're picking up from where we left off and you'll be very lost. I'll leave a card for you right here. Please watch the videos and then come right back. If you're still here, I'm going to assume that you've watched parts 1 to 5, in which case your program should look something like mine, and although the zombies do move down, you can see that they move way too fast and also none of the bullets really work, so there is still a lot of work to do. So first thing I'm going to do is to maintain a constant frame rate, and I'm going to do that by declaring like a game variable, which you can see I just did, and all I changed was that right down in the main loop I just had that variable placed instead of having 30 there. Now this really wouldn't make a difference, but it just makes changing that a bit easier in case we want to. Now what I'm going to do is to make sure that our zombies move like our bullets and that they are limited and not moving in the way that they are, where there are just so many zombies being spawned every single second and it's almost impossible to play. So I'm going to head back right up to where I had all of these variables which said bullet loop and bullet count. And similar to that, I'm going to create two more variables, one of which is going to be called zombie loop and one of them is going to be called zombie count. Okay, so zombie count, and each of these variables are going to hold pretty much the exact same thing as our bullet count except like different values. And what I mean is that they have the exact same function, and that is to limit the spawning of their particular clones. So for the zombie count, I think about 28 is the best number, but obviously you could play around with this, and like I said, this highly depends on your computer's execution speed, so you don't want to mess around with that. As far as okay, I meant that for the zombie loop, so our zombie loop is the one which needs to be 28 and our zombie count obviously needs to be 0. So now I'm going to scroll back down right here, and right at the bottom where you can see bullet count plus equal 1, I'm going to say zombie count plus equal 1. Very simple code, but where the real change is going to happen is right here where we're appending a zombie to the list. So what I'm going to say is if, and very similar to bullet, and you could actually even copy it if you want, I'm not going to, if zombie count is greater than or equal to zombie loop, well in that case we can append a zombie. But if it is not the case, then we do not append a zombie, and that's why I'm just going to leave it inside the if. Now this isn't enough, because if we just have this, zombies will keep spawning after a while, and we need to set the zombie count back to 0 so that the entire process repeats once again. And that is pretty much it. So now when you run your program, you should be able to see that the zombie spawning is pretty limited, and as you can see, this is a lot more tolerable. Now the zombies still move pretty fast, so I do want to slow them down a little bit. So I'm going to scroll up to where my zombies were, and yep, here they are. And as you can see, I set up my velocity to be about 8, but I think velocity more should be something like 4 based on this level. So I'm going to hit the green flag, not the green flag, the play button once again. And yep, I think this is way better. Perfect. So like I said, just ignore all of these deprecation warnings and all of that. They aren't really going to do anything to your code. Alright, perfect. The next thing we need to do is to make sure that our collisions work correctly. And for the collisions, I've actually copied some code because the code is pretty long. And I'm going to paste this in my spaceship, okay? And what I'm going to do is, after this, I'm going to explain everything to you. So this is our check collision function, and as you can see, it is like a pretty long function, but the overall idea is pretty simple. So since this code is in the spaceship class, or the shooter class if you want to call it, what this is going to do is to go through the entire zombies list, okay, and it's going to check if the zombie right here, it's going to check if the zombies x value, or rather if the spaceship's x value is between the two zombie ends. So if that is the case, then it's going to set the collision x to be true, which means that in the x value it is colliding. But obviously if it's just colliding in the x value, it doesn't mean anything as of yet, because like the zombie could be right on top of the stage while the spaceship is going to be right below, and that wouldn't really make sense doing that comparison unless collision Y is true as well. But before we get into collision Y, what is important to note is that for some instances, you could have something like this where I'll just draw it on a whiteboard, and this may take a while to load, so I will be right back. So what I meant was that your spaceship could be like here, and the entire zombie might be like here. And what I mean is that the spaceship right here, okay, assuming that the zombie eventually touches it by just coming straight, your spaceship will be colliding with it, but the X value of the spaceship right here wouldn't be registering the collision. So the collision, if we just have it as I mentioned right there, that's basically going to detect as did not collide, and that's not really a good thing. So what we need to do is to have another collision check for the X value, and this code is what makes sure that ensures that this part isn't ignored, and that we once again check that if this part is less than if this part isn't colliding, then it once again checks if there's any other part of the spaceship which is beyond like this point right here, and that is pretty much going to ensure that everything is set up and working properly. So if you want to look at it minute, so self.x plus self.width is going to be the right end of the spaceship, and we just make sure that the spaceship is also not out of like the edge, and it's not to the extreme. So that's what this and does, so that we can make sure the spaceship is not to the right of the zombie. And lastly, the the collision Y is very simple, and it's almost the same as collision X, just that the width and height are interchanged, and that is pretty much it. So now you can see I had an if collision X and collision Y, and since these are local variables, what I could do is like return true or return false, or I could do something like subtract the starfighter's health, which is what I was planning to do initially. But as of now, just for testing sake, I'm just going to print out something like print out hit, and let's actually just test out to see if our code works. So when I hit the run key and the A button, I'm just going to let a zombie hit me, and you can see that we do not have any anything popping up right here, but that's probably because I didn't call in the function just as yet. So what I'm going to do right here is that after the zombies move, I'm going to do a check collision. So starfighter dot check collision. Okay, and now let's test it out. So run and A key, and this is pretty laggy right here because I think my encoder is pretty overloaded, but let's just see. So boom, you can see hit, and obviously our function works, otherwise we wouldn't have so many hits. Perfect. So I do want to change one thing, and that is within our check collision function itself, and that is to make sure that the zombie actually terminates itself, and if it is touching the spaceship, then it's deleted. So I'm just going to copy, I'm going to paste this code right here, and you can see it's very similar to our bullet code, and what this is going to do is delete that item of, delete the zom item of the list, and that is pretty much it. Very simple code, but this is going to ensure that the zombie, as soon as it touches the spaceship, it is deleted, and that zombie no longer has like a collision check once again. Okay, so now what you need to do is to copy paste this entire code in the bullets class, okay, and that's because our bullets have to check the collision with the zombies as well. So what I'm going to do is to just paste it below the draw method, and you have to add one more line of code though, because in our case we want the bullet also to delete ourselves, but that's not the case with the starfighter. So what we can do is actually just duplicate this line because they're pretty similar, but I'm going to say bullets.pop. So bullets.pop, and instead of zombies, I'm going to say bullets.index. So bullets.index, and right here instead of zom, I'm going to type in self, okay? Because what we're going to do is have like a loop, and I think we already have it right down below, as you can see, and what I'm going to do is just add in that function right here. So I'm just going to say b.check collision, and that is pretty much it. So now when I run my code, you should be able to see that the zombies delete themselves if they touch the bullet. So I'm going to move the starfighter, and as you can see, we have pretty perfect collision. Nice. So now the next thing to do is, obviously I think the starfighter speed was a little bit too slow. So I'm going to bump it up a little bit before I wind up with this video. So I'm going to scroll right up back to the starfighter or the shooter, and I'm going to make the well about 5. And that is pretty much it. I'm not really going to be testing the code because I know that this is going to work. So I'll leave it right here, and that's it we'll be coding in this video. If you've enjoyed this video, please make sure you leave a like, and also don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.